How good was Yoda with a lightsaber? Really? We've all heard the tale of Shrek's left testicle conjuring his green saber from his robes, leaping into the air in his miniature stature, and duking it out with some of the most powerful heavy hitters in all of Star Wars history. Unfortunately, without the aid of Shrek's wiener and his other ball, like Mike Wazowski. Now, all jokes aside, Yoda is indisputably one of the greatest duelists in the history of the Star Wars mythology, and I would argue the second greatest Jedi duelist of all time behind Luke Skywalker. However, recently I have seen a lot of Yoda hate, particularly with regards to his dueling skills. So in this episode of Shooting the Shit in Star Wars, we are going to be analyzing what is one of and will always be one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars, and his dueling ability, how good he is, what form he used, and if he is truly the best lightsaber duelist in all of Star Wars. Spoiler alert, he's not, but still, we'll get into it. In addition to his immense connection to the Force, Yoda was amazingly skilled in lightsaber combat and one of the greatest duelists in Jedi history. Widely acknowledged as being perhaps the greatest Jedi duelist and sword master of his time, despite being trained as a Jedi consular, with a Jedi consular not being as combat-oriented as a Jedi Guardian and typically possessing a green lightsaber as opposed to the Guardian's blue lightsabers. Hence why Anakin and Obi-Wan have blue lightsabers and people like Yoda and Qui-Gon have green ones. In his duel with Count Dooku, who had become Darth Tyrannus, he had improved his skill even further, with Yoda holding the upper hand throughout the majority of the fight and would have bested him in combat had Tyrannus not chosen to flee. A testament to his unnatural experience in dueling was that Dooku under his tutelage became a swordsman of such rare skill and elegance that he quickly rose to surpass most Jedi apart from Windu and Yoda himself. Nearly inconceivable was the last fight the small Jedi had against the leader of the CIS, which resulted in Dooku actually landing a hit, though minor, on the Master of Ataru, a feat that was virtually impossible to accomplish and was pretty much not done in the history of Star Wars aside from on Vajun in the Yoda Dark Rendezvous novel. Another testament to Yoda's intense dueling skill, and probably his greatest feat in the subject, was the fact that he was able to stand on equal footing with Darth Sidious, but was also able to defeat and disarm Sidious, a feat that only Luke Skywalker, while empowered by the might and meditation of his family, and Mace Windu with the usage of Shatterpoint were ever able to replicate. And yes, Lucasfilm officials have confirmed that Mace Windu beat Sidious, and if you even dare to think that he didn't, I will destroy you. In fact, Sidious was actually confused and confounded by Yoda's sheer speed and skill. When he was able to disarm Sidious, who only preserved his life by throwing a huge blast of Force lightning, Yoda had to cease his death stroke to block with the Force, and then by shooting Yoda's saber from his hand when the Grandmaster was a moment too slow, or maneuvering around the Senate chamber on Senate pods. Overall, Yoda's mastery of lightsaber combat marked him as the greatest duelist of his time, without a shadow of a doubt. With Sidious himself, after having dueled Yoda, stated his belief that if had the Grand Master been chosen above Kenobi to go to Mustafar to face the young Darth Vader, he would have destroyed him. Yoda received intense training and usage in all the 7 forms of lightsaber combat and had achieved full mastery and eidetic knowledge of each of them and their stances and techniques. Known to be the best lightsaber instructor in the Jedi Temple, his complete mastery of each form was such he was able to decide which one fitted his student the most and instruct them on how to use their specialized form effectively. His most preferred and mastered style was Form 4 Ataru, which he particularly specialized in as it allowed him to compensate for his limited reach and stature. Known to be the Order's greatest master of Ataru, his technique was said to consist of the pure basics of Ataru taken to their highest conceivable level, very similar to Anakin Skywalker's to Gem So. Despite his advanced age and short stature, Yoda remained an exceptionally formidable duelist even into his 800s, displaying amazing speed and dexterity, leaping through the air and twirling as he battered his opponent's defenses. Much of his lightsaber combat style relied on jumps and acrobatics, augmented by his mastery of Force Valor, a Force-enhancing technique allowing him to enhance his stamina. If only Mike Tyson had used that in the fight against Jake Paul. Despite the fact that Yoda's primary combat specialization was Ataru, his skill in the form was such he was able to capably of effectively overcoming its weaknesses with ease and demonstrated an extreme level of skill with regard to deflecting blaster bolts, which Ataru was weak against, and could easily handle many opponents at once, evidenced by his easy victory over the multitude of clone troopers when he returned to the Jedi Temple during Order 66. In addition, Yoda at times would apply his mastery of the other forms into his dueling style. He was known for having proficiently applied elements of Shicho blade work with outstanding deflection ability, implied a superb level of skill in either Shien or Sarisu, forms 5 and 3. However, in his later years, particularly after his exile on Dagobah, Yoda lost a great deal of his mobility, demonstrating a pronounced limp and depending on a cane to aid him in his everyday movements. This loss of mobility was due to the fact that in his old age, Yoda suffered from debilitating arthritis, and when possible, Yoda preferred to use a hover chair rather than walk at all. His mastery of Force Valor allowed him to overcome these physical infirmities, but due to the extremely taxing nature of the ability, he was only able to utilize it for a short time before tiring, as demonstrated in pretty much all of his engagements. Even when he trained Luke Skywalker, however, Yoda retained enough skill to effortlessly disarm his pupil with only a stick, in spite of Skywalker being armed with a lightsaber at the time, and pulling a saber throw against him, and only lost when he allowed Skywalker to seize his stick. As for Master Yoda's lightsaber, he carried a green-bladed Shoto, which unlike most lightsabers possessed an ignition button that also acted as a clip, with Yoda being perhaps one of the few Force-sensitive Jedi and Sith alike who kept his trademark homespun robe on during combat, possibly because it was small enough not to hinder his movements. In conclusion, Yoda is one of the greatest duelists in all of Star Wars and does not deserve the amount of hate he gets for being a weak duelist or inferior to New Jedi Order combatants, because quite frankly, he's just not. He would wreck the entire cast of New Jedi Order, and yes, that does include Luke Skywalker, although that would be a very close fight. And in conclusion, Yoda's just a badass and is one of the greatest duelists in all the lore. See ya.